I didn't break into their system. I didn't delete a single file. I didn't touch a line of code after they fired me. And yet, 3 weeks later, NorthBridge Analytics quietly stopped being able to decrypt its own data. That's the part people still struggle with when they hear this story. They want a villain twirling a mustache, smashing servers, typing furiously in a dark room. That wasn't me. I was at home, watering a dying fern on my balcony, when the first panicked messages started lighting up my phone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a man who spent 23 years building an encryption system by the book got fired by a CEO who thought books were optional, and how that CEO learned, very publicly, that some rules exist whether you believe in them or not. NorthBridge Analytics used to feel like a machine that hummed correctly, not loudly, not impressively to outsiders, but correctly. When I joined, 23 years earlier, we were employee number 15, crammed into a rented loft with a couple of half-racks, tangled Ethernet, and a whiteboard that doubled as a lunch menu. I designed our first encryption layer on a borrowed server, wrote the initial key management notes in a spiral-bound notebook, and insisted, much to everyone's annoyance, that we log everything. By the time this story begins, NorthBridge was a mid-sized fintech SaaS provider handling sensitive financial data for banks, insurers, and hedge funds across the US and EU. PCI DSS, SOC 2, ISO 27001. Regulatory acronyms were our daily weather. And at the center of all of it, quietly, invisibly, was the encryption architecture. I designed it. I evolved it. I documented every scar and workaround as the company grew from monoliths to microservices, hardware security modules, certificate chains, key rotation protocols that didn't care who you were or how important your meeting was. I was the principal information security architect. Unofficially, I was the guy who said no. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just factually. No, we can't do that without violating policy. No, there is no master key. No, this system doesn't care what your title is. That worked fine, right up until the day Evan Hartley became CEO. The old CEO, Mark Whitaker, retired on a Tuesday. He did it right. All hands meeting. Thank you speech. Actual gratitude. He called out engineers by name. He shook my hand afterward and said, "Don't let them break it." I didn't realize how prophetic that was. The board introduced Evan Hartley the following Monday. 38. Polished. Perfect hair that somehow looked casual and intentional. MBA confidence, the kind that comes from always being told you're the smartest person in the room. He married the founder's daughter. The board loved that. Continuity, they called it. At his first all hands, Evan paced the stage like a TED speaker. "We need speed," he said. "We need to break down silos. We can't hide behind old processes anymore." That last line got applause. I felt my jaw tighten. Processes were the only reason we were still trusted. Within a month, the reorg landed. Information security, previously reporting directly to the CEO, was moved under a new umbrella group called Digital Innovation and Customer Experience. The new SVP was Chloe Nguyen. She was 30, smart, product-focused, not malicious, just dangerously underexposed to what happens when security becomes a feature instead of a foundation. Evan announced efficiency improvements alongside the reorg. Change control windows shortened from 72 hours to 12. An executive fast lane for urgent requests. Select reviews could be bypassed when necessary. Necessary, I noticed, was undefined. The first direct clash came fast. Evan wanted to impress a potential strategic investor with a live demo on Real client data. I got the email at 9:14 p.m. From Evan Hartley. Subject, quick ask. Greg, I need a single master login with full visibility for tomorrow's investor deck. We don't have time for a dummy environment. Just give me whatever admin key you use. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I replied, Evan, we do not maintain master logins per our zero trust policy and key management charter. There is no admin key that bypasses tenant isolation. I can provision an investor-safe environment using representative synthetic data by tomorrow morning. Using real client data would violate contractual and policy restrictions. Greg, no emotion, no lecture. 10 minutes later, I overheard him talking to Chloe near the glass conference rooms. Why is my security architect telling me no? Evan said, smiling thinly. This no master key story is cute. There's always a master key. That was the moment I realized something important. Evan didn't believe the system worked the way I said it did. He thought it was a choice. NorthBridge was in the middle of its SOC 2 Type 2 and PCI DSS recertifications. These audits weren't paperwork theater. European banks had renewal clauses tied to them. A clean report meant survival. We passed. Not just passed, aced it. The auditors called our encryption model a well-implemented industry benchmark. They specifically referenced the key management charter, the rotation logs, the separation of duties controls. At the town hall that followed, Evan beamed. "This proves our reorg worked," he said. Digital innovation brought security into alignment with business reality. He thanked Chloe by name. She stripped away unnecessary complexity. My name never came up. Later, in the break area, a junior developer laughed and said, "Guess those dusty binders finally got upgraded, huh?" That night, out of habit, I checked the privileged access logs. At 047, something jumped out. A new account. exec_sandbox_SA. Highly privileged. Cross-tenant access. Marked as an exception. IP address traced back to the Investor Relations Conference Wi-Fi. My stomach dropped, not from anger, but from clarity. I found the Slack thread within minutes. Evan pressuring a DevOps engineer named Ryan Patel. "Just make it temporary. We can't let archaic security bottlenecks slow this down. Greg will get on board once he sees the upside." I called Ryan into a small conference room the next morning. "Who authorized exec_sandbox_SA?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Evan." I nodded. "You know this violates Access Control Policy 8.2 and our SOC 2 controls." He swallowed. He said it was a one-time thing. I didn't yell. I wrote a formal security incident report. Screenshots. Timestamps. Policy citations. Sent to Chloe, legal, compliance, the CTO, the CFO. In the next leadership sync, Evan waved it off. "Operational dramatics," he said. "I'm not letting an internal control freak box us in." That sentence went into my notes. Greyrock Capital wanted something special. Cross-client analytics. Market behavior insights pulled from encrypted transaction data. The ask was illegal without explicit permission. I explained that calmly. "We can do aggregated, anonymized, privacy-preserving computation," I said. "But we cannot create an internal decryption backdoor." Evan leaned back in his chair. "We built the system," he said. "We hold the keys." That night, the email arrived. Subject: Internal Analytics Key, Greyrock. "We need an internal superuser decryption capability. Call it an elevated operations key. No one external needs details. Design and implement this." I replied, CCing legal and compliance. I cited Section 12.4. Section 14.3. Client contracts. Regulatory exposure. I cannot comply. A week later, HR called it a performance alignment meeting. They fired me for cause. They asked me to sign a document stating all encryption knowledge had been transferred. I pointed to Section 14.3 of the Charter. They waved it off. They took my badge. They took my laptop. They did not ask for the hardware token. They did not perform a key custody transfer ceremony. As I walked out, I realized something chillingly simple. The system was about to do exactly what I built it to do, and I didn't need to lift a finger. If you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. This is where it starts. Because 3 weeks later, the keys rotated, and nobody knew how to turn them back. 3 weeks after they fired me, my calendar reminded me of something NorthBridge no longer remembered. Quarterly key rotation, Tier 2 ingest. I didn't dismiss the notification. I didn't snooze it either. I just looked at it, quietly, while the coffee finished dripping in my kitchen. Because that rotation wasn't a suggestion. It was a clock. NorthBridge's encryption system didn't go down. That's the phrase Evan later used on an investor call, and it was wrong in a way that mattered. Nothing crashed. Nothing broke. The HSM stayed powered. The certificates remained valid. Existing decrypted operational data continued to serve dashboards exactly as designed. What stopped was something much subtler. New inbound encrypted data stopped unlocking. Transactions still arrived. Payloads still landed in storage. They just sat there, perfectly safe, perfectly useless, waiting for a key operation that never came. The rotation window opened at 2 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. Automated alerts went out to the security key custodian mailing list, which still listed me as the owner. By 2:15, The system logged its first warning. Rotation pending, primary custodian authorization required. By morning, batch jobs began failing silently. No alarms yet. Just missed joins. Empty analytics fields. A few stale charts. The kind of thing executives don't notice. But engineers do. At 11:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Greg, this is, Marcus from Platform Ops. We're seeing some weird pipeline delays. You wouldn't happen to know. Delete. At 2:04 p.m., an email hit my personal account. Subject, quick question. Hi Greg. Hope retirement's treating you well. We're seeing some key-related alerts tied to last night's rotation. Any chance you could point us to the runbook section that covers manual overrides? Chloe. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I replied with exactly one sentence. Hi Chloe. I no longer have authorization to access or advise on NorthBridge systems. That was true, and it was everything. By the second day, clients started noticing. Not outages. Those would have triggered immediate escalation, but lag. A European bank emailed support asking why their fraud detection dashboard hadn't updated since Tuesday night. Greyrock's pilot environment showed data from 48 hours ago. SLA monitoring tools lit up yellow. Not red. Yellow is dangerous. Yellow is where denial lives. Inside NorthBridge, the scramble began. They pulled up the runbooks. They followed the steps. They hit the same wall every time. Error. Key operation denied. Unfulfilled custodian ceremony requirement. The message linked to a document path. / intranet / governance / security / key _ management _ charter _ v4 _ 2.pdf. Page 74. Section 14.3. At 6:12 a.m., my phone rang again. This time, it was the general counsel. I answered. Good morning, Mr. Lawson, she said, voice tight. We're experiencing some operational challenges related to our encryption environment. I'm aware, I said. We were hoping you could. I need to stop you right there, I said calmly. As of my termination, classified as for cause, I no longer have legal authorization to access NorthBridge systems. A pause. If I were to advise or assist informally, I continued, that could later be characterized as unauthorized access or interference. Silence stretched. I assume, I added, this call is being recorded. Yes, she said quietly. Then I'll say this for the record. Any remediation must follow the key management charter procedures approved by the board. She swallowed audibly. I'll relay that. The emergency board meeting happened that afternoon. I wasn't there, but I know exactly how it unfolded. I designed the binder. The blue tab labeled 14.3, custodian transition, sat exactly where I put it. The general counsel read aloud. In the event of role change or termination of the primary key custodian, the organization shall provide a minimum of 90 calendar days of overlap. The room went quiet. Someone asked the question that mattered. Did we do this? No one answered. Then came the emails. My incident report. The exec_sandbox_SA account. Evan's Slack messages. The email requesting a super-user decryption key. My refusal, polite, documented, unemotional. The board didn't see sabotage. They saw a paper trail. At 7:48 p.m., the phone rang again. This time, the number was familiar. Greg, the GC said. The board would like to request your assistance. Under what status? I asked. Another pause. We acknowledge your termination classification may have been inappropriate. May have been, I repeated. To proceed, I said evenly. I will require a written reclassification to without cause, restoration of my severance and retirement benefits, indemnification, and a formal board resolution authorizing my temporary role in a key custody ceremony. She exhaled. The board agrees. I smiled just slightly. Evan wasn't on the call when they finalized the terms. He didn't need to be. By then, he understood. The system he thought he controlled didn't answer to confidence, or authority, or vision decks. It answered to process, to documentation, to signatures he skimmed and approved. When they asked him to resign, there was no shouting, just a quiet escort, a closed door, and a lesson he'd never forget. I returned to the building 2 days later. The man-trap still smelled faintly of ozone and disinfectant. The logbook lay open on the shelf. I signed my name. GL. Purpose. Key custody transfer ceremony. The The hardware token was exactly where I left it. The seal unbroken. I inserted it into the HSM console, entered the passphrase. Step by step. No shortcuts. The system unlocked itself like it had been waiting. Pipelines resumed. Dashboards updated. Greyrock's data flowed again. No heroics. Just compliance. I didn't win by breaking anything. I won by refusing to bend. By letting policy and time and arrogance collide without my help. So here's my question to you. Have you ever had a boss who thought rules were optional until reality enforced them? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories where quiet professionalism beats loud incompetence, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is simply letting the system do what it was built to do.